What's going on, everybody? BobbyFi and Eric Sheets-Haber. We're going to be talking through tonight's big MLB slate. Another solid night over here. Again, it's four. Look, this is not huge amounts. Haven't made a killing or anything, but 4 profitable nights in a row. We'll take it. Trying to keep things on the positive side. Hopefully, August is a really good month, and got some golf sweats, which we and Sheets were just talking about. So, Sheets, how'd you do yesterday? And then tell us a little bit about your golf.
At least you won in baseball. We'll leave it at that. And we're going to move on to the next one. But as far as golf goes, it's really funny. We didn't talk about this, and both of us have a lineup going in the signature. Apparently, let's share these. First of all, this is Bobby's. And this looks somewhat familiar. Oh, you know what? You should go up there and wring Neiman's neck for trying what he tried. Did you see that?
I missed it.
He was in the freaking pot bunker on 18. And there's literally no reason for him to try to do it. He went for the freaking green, went in the water, double bogeyed or whatever it was. Yeah, he ended up like really just like caustic, whatever. So you got Rahm, Neiman, Fleetwood.
Schmidt had a terrible day.
Bazin, Pan, who was freaking everybody's hero today.
Yeah.
Oh, and Schmidt was your pain.
I thought I'd be a little bit less chalky than I was based on the projections, but it is what it is. Yeah.
So now we move up to Lucky Sheets here. And I have a couple of similar ones. I have Rahm and Fleetwood and Pan.
And Bazin.
But I have the do you have Bazin?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have Connors and Van Rooyen. So
nice.
So what's the difference? So I have Connors, Van Rooyen
versus my Matthias Schmidt, which is
and
I have Neiman.
Okay, so that's our 2v2. Okay, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it could be something.
But the good thing is, it doesn't matter if Schmidt's a +4 because it's like there's no. It all starts all over again.
You know what I mean? Right, exactly.
Love the note.
It's great. It's great. It feels great right now. But yeah, and also I've got in the $5. I've got some in the top. I think top 50. I've got in the $100 in the $20. I've got some that are up near the top or have some good shots.
Yeah, I had one that was like, obviously it was in second for a couple of 20 minutes. Cashing for 100,000 at some point or 50,000 or something. Then now it's like 34th or something like that. But yeah, okay. So we got possible golf things to wake up to tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I guess we could just get started with the MLB. Yeah. So I'm doing just so everybody knows, I'm doing some I guess unique or whatever it is, some different types of videos. I'm really trying to just go back to what I said I was going to do, some more like live looks at the actual building stuff. So I had this idea. Well, I'm doing it for this guy who buys my League of Legends stuff on State Kings. Mm-hmm. And League of Legends is weird because I'm never awake when the slate locks. So the people who are staking me don't even know really who I have unless they know how to look at it on DraftKings. There's one guy that stakes me doesn't even have access to DraftKings most of the time. So I have to kind of tell him what to root for. It's obviously way too much work on my part for the 8 cents I'm making, but it seems like a nice guy, so I'm like doing it. Sure. So I was trying to think of ways to do it. So what I ended up doing was I recorded at when I did the lineups, like 10, 11 o'clock at night, a video of me making the lineups and who I had, but then obviously I didn't want to tell everybody who I had beforehand. So I set the video to be published at 4 a.m., So I set it to be published right after lock.
Oh, awesome.
So, and it's and there's no light swap, so there's no big deal. And I went through the whole process of stuff, and I did the same thing today. I built a tennis slate today, and it was a pretty unique slate to build. And now that's locked over. After we finish doing this, I'll publish it, and I went over a lot of my process stuff. I'm going to do a little more of that. And listen, if nobody likes it, I don't care. So I think people will definitely learn from it, and
yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's really cool. All right. With that said, overall things on the slate, just to touch on, I guess, just weather. Let's see, Milwaukee, Washington. Is that even on this slate? I don't think that's on this slate. So we don't have to worry about that. Toronto and New York, which we can maybe Sheets. We get a Mrs. Sheets update later on. But
I don't know, man. You freaking trashed on Mrs. Sheets indirectly yesterday.
How did I do so?
Very, very indirectly. But when you were saying that, listen, I know these people with these boots on the ground weather forecasts. I'll trust Roth over the people that
No,
are right there.
when I have 150 examples of her always being right, how can I possibly
That's
say it's
true.
wrong?
That's
So
true.
it's a little different. You got to have some exceptions.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that was not directed towards her in any way.
But yeah, but yes, New York is definitely it's on. We're on the lookout for thunderstorms all weekend. Actually.
Yep, it's
But
going to
we'll
be
see.
interesting because it is a spot that from regular DFS, you know, we can go through it, but I'll let you see. I'll let you start the rest of them, and I'll just start this one really quick.
Oh, hold on. Did they? Let me see. I'll take a look at the. Yeah, so it looks as though Milwaukee, Washington. Wow, they have it in orange yellow actually. Okay, okay, that's very interesting. All right, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, so I'll start with it really quick because I just thought if this game was a full go, I think I could make an argument for both the Yankees and for getting some exposure to Gaussman. I also have this, you know, I like to take hitters against their former team sometimes. So if it was a smaller slate, I think I would be looking at like 3 different prongs of this. Realistically, not unless I was playing like a lot more in the lottery than I'm probably going to play. But I do think that I would consider Gaussman and the Yankees on the other side both as interesting ways to get a little bit different. It is worrisome to me because, like I said, I think this Yankee lineup now is very strong. And it's just you have Stanton back. You have adding Stanton and Jazz to that lineup already, and Ben Rice, who I think is going to be good. And I just think it's a much stronger lineup. But I still think Gaussman is always going to be a guy on slates where I don't feel like we have one really clear pitcher who I feel comfortable using. I'm definitely considering Gaussman as a number 2, and I'm definitely considering especially the Yankee side of the hitting. How about you?
Now, who's against his former team?
Stroman.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know Stroman was on Toronto.
Yeah, that's where he came up. He pitched most of his career there before.
Yeah, so maybe he'll have a ceiling performance and have 4 strikeouts. Maybe we'll see.
Right. I meant I was more like I was open to the Toronto idea as getting different because they're cheap.
I'm definitely open for the Yankees if in fact the game plays. Obviously, I have them like 5th, 6th maybe overall, combining both value and just general points. So I think that's pretty strong. I have them as one of the top options on FanDuel as well. So we have to kind of watch the weather. And I listen, I don't have it in me to play Gaussman against the Yankees right now. But like, I think I'll be very low owned. So if you think the game's going to play and finish and have the cojones to do it, go for it. I'll be probably either on the Yankee side or nothing.
I get that. I just want to throw. I always sometimes want to make a case, and people say, why would you think of the Gaussman against a good lineup like this? Well, it works both ways. The Yankees, this lineup has hit him for some power, especially Judge just owns him, but they also have struck out 33% of the time and over 200 at bats against the lineup he'll face, and that's a good enough reason when I don't have a good SP2 that I feel comfortable with to take a shot on a guy. So I just wanted to throw that out there. All right, next up we have the Reds, right?
Yeah. So San Francisco, Cincinnati. I'm getting. It's so funny. When I did the DraftKings analysis before, and then I did FanDuel after, and I have San Francisco exactly the same on both DraftKings and FanDuel, and that being like the last stack in my main stuff. I mean, I have like 6 teams I like better on both DraftKings and FanDuel. But and it's basically the same 7 teams, by the way, I have on both sides. And San Francisco just kind of sneaks in there. So I definitely like them a little bit. Cincinnati's obviously a good park for that. I'm not getting to any of the pitching, and I'm not getting to Cincinnati. I'm expecting, not expecting, but one thing about I don't want to say, Bobby, you're like homerism. It's not like that, but you always seem to have a lot more respect for the two quarterbacks, the 2 pitchers on Cincinnati, like the Abbott and the Lodolo. They always end up being pretty low owned, and I'm just curious to see if this is one of those spots where you might like a little bit of Abbott.
Yeah, actually, and I do. Again, it's when you don't have a guy who you love at an SP2, and these guys are like Abbott, especially, is a much better pitcher than he gets credit for, like nationally. Just even his numbers. The guy's got one of the better ERAs in baseball pitching in Cincinnati, which is tough to do. He is not an overwhelming strikeout pitcher. He sort of changed his style a little bit this year to become more of like a pitching, a little bit more to contact. But San Francisco can certainly be got by lefties this year. And the only thing that's tricky about this game for me is San Francisco is going to play some guys who are literally not even in the DraftKings pool. Like Mark Canha might bat 3rd for them, and he's not going to be in the DraftKings pool because he was a trade deadline guy too. the one that's, and I also usually have a little more respect for Harrison, just more when people want to pick on him. But I'm sort of confused at why we're not getting to the Reds here, or why the projections don't like the Reds a little bit better than I do. I think I could talk myself into the Reds and feel pretty damn good about it, to be honest with you. And Harrison, again, he's coming off of 37 DK points in Colorado. He had, oh no, actually, no, sorry, that was at home against Colorado, but he had 20 the game before in Colorado. He's got talent, Harrison, no question, but he has huge blow up sides of him too. Occasionally he just can't find the strike zone. And I just feel like against this Reds team, and you give me, 80 degrees and a little wind blowing out in Cincinnati, I'm always going to have interest in Cincinnati in that spot. So I actually have Cincinnati as a pretty reasonable stack today. Yeah, that's where I'm at. All right, Baltimore, Cleveland again.
So this Cleveland was the team that I didn't play yesterday, which was the
I
issue.
didn't either.
Okay. So I do have Baltimore once again as one of the top stacks on the board, both DraftKings and FanDuel. And once again, this is an even nastier example of where this Cleveland bullpen can come and screw you. Okay, because I'm playing Baltimore because they look good, and specifically against Carrasco, right? So you might get one of those games where you get Baltimore, they get to them, they get 4 runs, and after 3 1/3 innings, poor Carrasco gets escorted out, and then they get no more hits the rest of the game. So, so that is a very dangerous proposition. But I still have Baltimore rated really, really high. I do not have any. I'm not getting to any Kremer right now, nor am I getting obviously any Carrasco, and I'm not getting to Cleveland. So it's a very cautious, scared Baltimore pick, but that's where I am right now.
Yeah, I am with you. Again, it's crazy because even when Carrasco pitches, usually against much worse teams than Baltimore, you usually see a total on the other side that's around 5 or more, and for it to be lower than that today it's kind of weird. And he's not been he's done nothing but just get hit for a long time now. He had one good start in the last 20. I on its face, I think Baltimore's a great pick, and because the projections are maybe it's just because the bullpen, I guess, but you have nobody on Baltimore expected to be above 10% owned. Sign me up. I'm going to take that chance, and I'm going to one of these days they'll get 7 or 8 off the first pitcher, and maybe they get a few more in the next inning or something off of one real reliever, and then you just get the BS guys, the worst pitchers at the end of the bullpen. And maybe that's the way it works, but I really think that Baltimore makes a lot of sense. I also want to throw out there that one thing that's been working, and it's been better because we've had some small slates, but taking those guys with the best home run expectancy. Now they're not going to hit them all the time, but we joked about it yesterday. Mickey Moniak was the second most likely guy to hit a home run going into the slate, which made no sense to me. But I still played him in my big buy-in, and of course he hits a home run.
Did he hit? Well, he was the only lefty on the whole team, right?
Yeah, I know, and he hit the home run. So he and Hoppy both hit a home run. That was my 2-man angel stack. So
Hoppy hit another one. Oh my God,
guy's a monster. But Jose Ramirez, just reminding everybody because Cleveland doesn't play on main slates as much, as so does Baltimore. Jose Ramirez, Gunnar Henderson, these are guys if you want to find one-offs, these are your kind of guys. They're guys who are going to run, guys who have tons of power. There's really, those are the kind of one-offs you want to play in general.
Dude, and Bobby Witt, just another 30-piece last night or whatever.
Just a typical Bobby Witt game, home run and a stolen base every day. All right, Miami and Atlanta.
Before we go on, I just want to again indicate this one guy that's showing up. There's a 2K guy from Baltimore at third base, Kobe Mayo.
Connor Norby.
No, Kobe Mayo.
Oh my God, who? I don't even know who that is.
I don't know who it is either, but I haven't projected. So.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea literally who.
I do know who that is actually.
Yeah, this is his first game because with Westbrook it says a sideline. They're pulling him up. I don't know if he's any good or whatever, but he's 2K as part of a Baltimore stack. So.
Yeah, whether it's he or Urias, I have interest in whoever that third base 2K or 2400 guy is. So I like that. All right, what do you like in Miami and Atlanta?
So it looks as though Miami's probably a bullpen game, right, for the Miami side.
Yeah.
I like I like Schwellenbach as a secondary option. I mean, I like two guys a little more, but I definitely do like him. And I like Atlanta on both sites, but both DraftKings and FanDuel is one of the top, if not the top, overall stack on the board. So I don't know what Miami's going to throw at them as far as a bullpen game goes, but Atlanta is probably going to get good weather down there. It's hot everywhere else in the freaking country. It's like 1,000.
90 in Atlanta, so yeah.
It's like 1,000 degrees here today. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's probably why it's going to rain. So I do like Schwellenbach in spite of the rain, in spite of the weather there, and I do like Atlanta. So you like Schwellenbach here a little bit, or you have him as a top one, and probably not the top.
Yeah, I think that he's the one I feel the best about as my SP2 right now. I mentioned the pivot guy in Gaussman as a possibility. I mentioned what's his name for Cincinnati as a possibility. Again, I want to just say you're playing a minor league team, basically. There are a few bats in there that belong in the major leagues, but there's a lot of guys who would not be starting for most major league teams. In fact, most of their lineup I don't think would make it anywhere for most teams after they traded every deadline. Also leads me to I don't like stacking 5-man stacks of teams facing a bullpen game on giant slates, and this is an 11 gamer, so it's not one that I normally want to do. However, we're talking about, again, a minor league team basically being out there. So we might get really, really bad relievers from the minors. It still could work. As of right now, I would probably put Atlanta in the, they're below top. I don't necessarily want their 5-man, but I want exposure all over the place. So it's probably my favorite of the 3-man stacks. And, guys like Ozuna, if you can afford him, Ozuna, Riley, Olsen, if you can afford them, I guess. And then maybe throw Soler into the mix. Orlando Arcia has been hitting like crazy, and he's starting to hit like crazy again. He's 2,800. I think Atlanta makes a lot of sense, but I would rather do it as a mini stack just because, again, the bullpen games make it a little bit harder to just go completely nuts. And it's usually what you need from a 5-man stack to win on these slates. And again, I'm pointing this out, but nobody has been winning with 5-man stacks on these even in the 250. The guy who I know who won the 250 last night, it was a 3-1-1-1-1-1-1-1 or something like that. It was people on these small slates, top pro guys are no longer fully 5-man stacking quite often on those 5 gamers. Now on a bigger slate, I would lean more towards doing it, but I just want to throw that out there. Anyway, like Atlanta, and Schwellenbach right now is my SP2 at the moment. And by the way, and he's another one. We should be worried. He's coming off 40. He just put up 40 the other day. Kind of good and bad there. All right, Boston and Texas.
What? Okay, so here's my. I'll say right now that I'm not getting into any of this game, but I'll ask then rhetorically, I guess. Why am I not getting to Boston? Didn't we used to just attack stack whoever Arena was pitching against all the time? I don't know. But I'm getting nothing from this game. What do you like here?
So the issue is it's a massive park downgrade, I guess, is the argument of why you won't be getting it, and because they're really expensive, maybe. You have guys like, the interesting thing is that Boston, it's much better hitting than Hitters Park, but if you look at their best hitters, Jalen Duran, if you look at Rafael Devers, these guys are actually better statistically on the road, as is Tyler O'Neill. It's actually interesting this year. They all these guys and again, they get to part of the road for them is Yankee Stadium. It's other good hitters parks too, Baltimore. Right. But it's not. I mean, it is weird to see the Boston guys with such, pretty heavy road splits for the most part. Devers about the same, but the other guys are pretty heavy. So yeah, I think it's a very reasonable spot to try to take some Boston. Cutter Crawford's just coming back. I'm surprised the total in this game is as high as it is, to be honest. I'm not surprised the total is. I'm surprised that it's a pick'em basically, or whatever you call it for baseball. I'm surprised that Boston's projected to score as much. I don't know. It's a 9 total. I just feel like it feels a little bit odd to me. But I didn't get to anything naturally out of it. But I think I could talk be talked into some Boston. Probably not going to go against Crawford for Texas, but. Worse plays have been made. All right. Next up is Tampa Bay, Houston.
Yeah, to me, this is actually the preferred SP2 to Schwellenbach, and that would be Kikuchi. Not is it by a lot? Not really, but I definitely right now have Kikuchi as kind of the clear number 2 here. He gets the benefit of the new sneaky Houston magical cheat juice, whatever they can give him. And he's got a good matchup, and they're probably going to see what he's got, and he's going to be pumped up for his first start here, I guess. So I definitely like him. Not really going to get to the Baz, and I don't have either of these teams as one of my top 7 stacks, so I'm just going to leave the rest to you. So I imagine you have to put Kikuchi like somewhere near the top, right?
So yeah, naturally, but like I just want to tell everybody, like Kikuchi has not been good this year. In fact, you could say he's been really bad. So for him to get 30, when I see 35% ownership next to him, and I see Schwellenbach, who is going to be half that, who I think has, I mean, Kikuchi has tremendous upside, which is not what he used to have because he's become more of a strikeout pitcher. But look, Schwellenbach, we don't need to look that far back. I mean, he just put up 40 in his last game. Right. And in a tough matchup. And the guy's got some talent, and he's young, and I want to sort of side with that against the Miami team that's playing minor leaguers. I'd rather do that than look. I know the Rays aren't quite, what we're used to from them, but it's just I still, for whatever reason, I'm not the first one to want to click on lefties against the Rays in general. And I agree. Kikuchi seems like the natural cash game play. That's fine. I personally will probably be fading him at this ownership in tournaments. Not entirely, probably, but just overall, I'll probably be below the field. Did you get to any Houston? You didn't get to any Houston at all?
I thought I would, but I didn't. No.
That's sort of where I'm at too. I didn't get to it, and I'm not really sure why. So I might have to reconsider the Houston thing. One thing that is making it a little bit tricky is like they're pinch hitting for, they're rotating for Singleton on certain days. They've done some weird stuff where they've done some pinch hitting for guys who they don't usually do that for. Not a huge deal, just something I thought I'd throw out there. Anyway, so Kikuchi, yes, just fine with it. But at that ownership, if it really maintains that high, I will be happy to take the half the ownership on Schwellenbach.
Okay, so we have here in the White Sox, Minnesota, we have the irresistible force against the immovable object, sort of like with 17 different derivatives of that. You have Joe Ryan, who rates to be the best play on the slate for a lot of reasons. Not to mention the fact that it's one of the reasons is because he's against the White Sox, who's talk about minor league teams. I mean, they aspire to be a minor league team. I mean, they should really play like a 7-game series with the Marlins to see really what happens. But now with all that said, I literally can't ever win when I play Joe Ryan. And I'll say something else that, I mean, you look through his game logs, they don't look that great. You know what I mean? Like he's fine, but he doesn't look like a 50% owned pitcher, which is what he's going to be. And one of the reasons why is because you could afford him like really easily. Like you play him with Kikuchi or him with Schwellenbach. I just built like some random stupid lineups in here. So you could play him easily. He's going to be really, really popular, and he's just never done anything for me. But I mean, what am I going to say? I mean, he's certainly the best play on the slate. He's probably the best pitcher. That's kind of hard to say. I haven't really thought of it in that way, but could be the best pitcher. Could be against the worst team, and that's a tough combination to fade if you want to know the truth. But so yeah, definitely best play. Definitely high owned, and do with that what you wish. What you also can do is play the Twins, and the Twins, I have them as one of my top 7 on both DraftKings and FanDuel. That naturally they correlate well with Ryan, but even still, I definitely like them. So Minnesota, Ryan, and I'm going to fare which one screws me.
Yeah. So what worries me? So so first of all, I am on board with Joe Ryan. Is for a guy who's averages out to be one, score so many fantasy points in general, he definitely feels like you don't feel thrilled every time you look at the game log, and it's kind of strange. But then he'll throw out like this 35 or 40 game. I like Joe Ryan. It's its lowest total on the slate, 2.8 for Chicago. They strike out. They don't do anything. It's all makes sense to play Joe Ryan. He's the obvious cash game play. Yep. Now, if you wanted to do something different in tournaments, sure, I get it. You have plenty of pivots. We've talked about some of them already, but he is clearly my number 1 pitcher on the slate by a lot. And if I, just right off the bat, that's how I thought. I want to point out that I'm a little worried about this Minnesota lineup because I think this is going to play almost like a bullpen game. So we have Davis Martin in his first outing, like just threw 60 pitches. And if you're playing a somewhat of a bullpen game now, the danger is Minnesota. We know they love to pinch hit and get their lefty righty situations going. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of digging and figure out what happens if they bring a lefty, like exactly who they've got on the bench or whatever. But because they do look like a good stack to me as well, and they have a huge total, 5.6 total in Minnesota, which you don't see very often. It's 86 degrees in Minnesota, another one you don't see all that often, and it's 8 miles an hour winds blowing out to right. So everything on paper looks like a good spot for the Twins. I love Willie Castro at the top of the lineup. The Twins are definitely a team for me. I'm just going to have to figure out where they rank going on later. Because I think you might get like 3 innings out of Martin, and then you might get that one reliever for an inning or two kind of a thing. And it feels a little bullpen-y. And I don't want to – the 2 highest totals today are against bullpens. I'd rather not stack against a bullpen 5-man if I didn't have to. Okay. Next.
All right. So we got some fun games and some fun pivots to go here. And I'm going to start with this one. So Mets at the Angels. I don't think the Mets have ever played the Angels. It's like in 50 years, I don't think they've ever played them. And they have, obviously, but it doesn't seem that way, right?
I don't remember it.
And Tyler Anderson gets his first start against Seattle since the Eisenhower administration. He always pitches against Seattle and nobody else. But now he gets the Mets, and I have to say, I think it's going to be another day of me getting frustrated attacking Tyler Anderson, because I think I'm going to do it again. Also, I definitely like the Mets as one of my top 7 stacks. And listen, you've spoken about this guy before. I mean, he doesn't even have the uniform yet, but we've also spoke about I spoke about how bad the Angels are against righties. And Blackburn, he took 2.5 months off from an injury or whatever it was. And, it wasn't great, but it was also against the Angels. All right. Mm-hmm. So now he gets another shot. And that was when he was on Oakland.
Right. So, pretty wild to play to go from Oakland to the Mets and then play the same team twice in a row.
Yeah. How I bet you there's some trivia question. Is there anybody that started 2 games in a row in a regular season game against the same team?
It must have happened, but I can't think of it. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll bet you it never was one switching from the American League West to the NL East.
No, that never happened.
There's no way that could have happened.
There is no way that ever happened. But can I tell you something? I'm kind of down with it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm down with it in GPPs. I'm down with it in the lottery. It's a stupid freaking play that just might work. So I'm throwing Blackburn into the hopper and see what comes out. But listen, a little sneaky correlation with the Mets too, in case he doesn't have the greatest game in the world. Maybe it's his first start for the team, right? Maybe they get him in for 5 innings or something and get a cheap win, even if he's not pitching well. Who knows? So I'm gonna gamble with him a little bit, but I'm definitely gonna play the Mets.
Yeah. So here's my this game has like it's really interesting. It would have been really interesting on a small slate too, because these guys wouldn't have been played. So you mentioned Paul Blackburn, who I feel like should be a lot cheaper, but I believe he's better than everybody thinks. And the fact that he's actually put up better numbers than everybody thinks. The guy who's actually been much, much better than everybody gives him credit for is Tyler Anderson. And he's had some good matchups to face. And now this is not a good matchup. Make no mistakes about it. The Mets against lefties are really, really good. They're the 4th best team in OPS in baseball against lefties. They also do, strike out a fair bit. It's like right middle, little more than average. I could see myself. I mean, look, we always say Tyler Anderson has no strikeout upside. He struck out 10 guys in 2 out of his last 4 starts. He struck out 8 in one of those other games. If you took just the stats and you lined all these pitchers up together, he might look like the best or second best pitcher on the slate for the season. And all we hear every time is everybody wants to stack against him. He's probably been the best pitcher against the spread in all of baseball. His strikeout props, so he probably has crushed those as well as anybody else has. So I'm in on the taking a shot on Tyler Anderson a little bit, and I'm also interested a little bit in the Mets. So I'm a little bit on the other side of it. I want to see how Blackburn does. Again, back-to-back starts against the Angels, a team that knows him, fairly well, same division, all that stuff. I'd rather it be somebody else he hasn't faced before. But I think the Mets are my preferred thing here. Even though I said all these nice things about Tyler Anderson, and I think separately I'll also get a little bit of Tyler Anderson exposure. Just is what it is. All right. See, but you know what? I'm looking at the numbers here, and I'm looking at different projections. There's a chance that some people actually may end up. I don't know if they'll really play Tyler Anderson 10%, but I'm looking at one site that I'm not going to say who, but has him projected at 10% ownership. Everything else is like 2%. So thought that was kind of weird. All right, my Dodgers and Oakland sheets.
Yeah, so I will talk about my biases, and then I'll go right back to my once hero, Gavin Stone. I was right there with the 40 burger against the White Sox.
Right.
And since then he's gotten 20 fantasy points total in 4 games.
Right.
So that's not great.
Tough matchup, though, in all fairness.
Yeah, that's definitely not great. But I'll try it. I don't know. Again, no reason. Certainly doesn't. Actually, I shouldn't say that. He actually shows up as, I'm not lying, like the 5th best point per dollar pitcher on my board. So Stone, and I have the Dodgers rated top 3 on both sites, DraftKings, FanDuel. So I like that too. So I like the Dodgers, and I like a little George Stone for fun.
Yeah, I don't see why we shouldn't be playing Gavin Stone today. To be honest with you, it doesn't.
Oh, I said George Stone. Sorry.
Yeah, no. No problem. I think this is actually like a good play, and it makes sense. Again, Stone is not the strikeout guy that some of the other Dodger prospects have been coming up. He's been fairly consistent. He's got good enough strikeout stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's just, it's just not his. He's not his strength. He's just a good pitcher. But this is Oakland. I don't see why we can't play Gavin Stone here, and I certainly don't see why we can't play the Dodgers. So look, it is Oakland. It's not a great hitter's park, and usually I would say the Dodger Stadium is about the same if it's cold, but it's right now 70 degrees in Oakland. I mean, which is better than most games in Oakland. But the Dodgers have been playing in like 85-degree weather lately. Give me the Dodgers and give me a little bit of Stone. So I'm in on that. The thing about the Dodgers, though, I would just maybe caution only against full stacks, because this is not a very strong lineup that they're putting out there. It's the Ohtani Lux is batting 3rd probably again. You still have Will Smith and Teoscar in there, but then you've got like Nick Ahmed, Pajes, Hayward, Biggio, Rosario probably in there. It's going to be a little bit weird until we start getting some of the other bigger bats back. So, and also remember, there's pinch hit risk with basically everyone after 5 for the Dodgers. That's going to make me off some Dodger stacks later in the year. But when they're low owned like today, I expect Ohtani to get ownership. I don't really think anyone other than Lux gets ownership outside of him. Sign me up. I'm definitely in on the Dodgers.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Let me start with Philly, Seattle. So there's a pitcher here who's a rookie, and his first start, he plays 53 pitches at Atlanta and got teed up a little bit. Well, actually only gave 3 runs and 53 pitches, 19 fantasy points. Then his next start, he was against Oakland, didn't do so great, whatever. Then his 3rd start, he pitched the first shutout for a rookie it says here in Philly, the first one since Zach Eflin, I guess. His 3rd start, I guess. Then, and actually that was only in 6 innings, I guess. And then against Cleveland, full complete game shutout, 34 fantasy points. For the year, he's 1.8 ERA, 3-0, 0.76 WHIP. He has the matchup against the team that everybody tries to play pitchers against, specifically righties, in Seattle, and I have him at 11% ownership. So, what, as Seinfeld would say, is the deal with that?
Okay, so I'll give you a little background on Phillips and why maybe the numbers don't like him as much as well as, but he's pitched well. He was not a great minor league pitcher. He doesn't have a lot of strikeout upside. He didn't have a lot of strikeout upside in the minors. He, even with his great starts, hasn't really flashed much of that in the majors either. But it is Seattle, so he's got a K prop over 5, enough to make you consider him for sure. He's definitely he's a guy I'm considering, but I don't know if I'm quite as high on it. In fact, I would say that if you wanted a cheap stack or something to do a little bit different, I think this might be a good night to take a shot with Seattle. Philly is going to, they're going to let the kid go out there and have a chance. You know, I think even if he gets 4 or 5 runs, he'll probably get to his 80 plus, maybe 90 plus pitches. So I like Seattle as a get weird play today a little bit. But I also am definitely considering this play. It just feels like a lot of recency bias that's going to go into, and again, only 11% ownership. So maybe it's not, but it feels like we're looking at things we want to look at because he's been really good in a few starts. I'm not sure how much I expect that to continue, especially Seattle's lineup. I mean, just adding a Rosarena alone and Justin Turner, it's just a much more formidable lineup. And look, Rosarena has the strikeout stuff. Justin Turner doesn't strike out like a crazy amount, but they also both can work counts and aggravate pitchers. So it's gonna be a stronger Seattle lineup going forward. Now they're still gonna have plenty of strikeout guys in there, but it's maybe we need to upgrade them a little bit in terms of how we look at them strikeout wise.
Well, if you didn't like any of that, I mean, do you like anything else in this game or no?
No, just Seattle a little bit.
Okay. I mean, if you didn't like any of that, I can get you a righty against Colorado at 6,100, who is, I mean, he's getting owned, but not like that much. I have like 12, 13% or something like that. So I'm kind of down with this. So I do like Vasquez. I don't like San Diego. I don't like Colorado. I don't like Gomber. And again, the more I look at this, I mean, listen, Ryan is clearly the best. And then there's, I could just debate Schmellenbach, Kikuchi, but there are guys you could play. You could play Stone. You could play Blackburn. You could play Vasquez. You could play Phillips or whatever. So it's not as clear cut as I first thought. What do you think about Vasquez or anything else in this game?
Yeah. Usually when I see Vasquez, I want to stack the other side of the game.
Okay.
But you know, it's a good enough matchup where I have to consider him. 6,100. That's a terrific price. There are some of the stacks that I like that are expensive today, so I guess I can try and use them in those. And I think it's totally fine. I still prefer the guys at the top, but because the thing is, like we talked about Joe Ryan and his not necessarily always, you know, not always being as awesome. He's the one who I worry about like not playing in terms of like what kind of upside they have today. Everyone else, I feel like, yeah, maybe they get there, but I don't think it's that often enough to where we shouldn't be playing a cheap guy when we have an option. Vasquez gives us that option. So I would be okay with taking some Vasquez shots. And again, going to point out that in real life, I have maybe a little more respect for Gomber than most people do. But for whatever reason, this guy is just better at home. I can't figure it out with these splits, but he's better at home. I'm not going to play him. It's just more just because San Diego's good against lefties. It was more like thinking about San Diego as a stack. And I think I'm going to pass on the San Diego stack today. However, depending on how their lineup is, because they've got some cheap pieces, like I could certainly see playing Manny Machado as a one-off or something, or maybe even a mini stack with Campusano, Machado, and Bogarts, who's been like the best hitter in baseball lately. So I kind of like the mini stack maybe at most for San Diego. And to sort of round it out for me, I have Ryan, then Schwellenbach, then Abbott, then Kikuchi, just because of the ownership, then Stone, then Vasquez, then Phillips. Then you get the weird, okay, do I want to just take a shot and play Gaussman thing? So that's sort of my pitching pool, but it's mostly going to be geared towards the Schwellenbach, Ryan, Abbott, Kikuchi, most likely, although I'm trying to be below the field on Kikuchi, and I'll make sure to do so. I don't think you worry as much about ownership as far as stacks go today, just based on the early projections. Maybe it'll change a little bit later. Minnesota and Atlanta, though, who are going to be the two most popular teams, are both facing bullpen games. And I guess that if you wanted to get, you know, maybe just anybody but them, but even them, I'm okay with, because the ownership isn't that crazy high and the pricing is fair. So, but the teams I like outside of those, I like the Baltimore, even though it worries me with the great bullpen behind them. I like the Dodgers. I actually like Cleveland a little bit, but it's more like a mini stack. And then the one other team that I'm really considering as a stack that I just don't know what I want to do with is Houston.
What do you what's the weather like in Oakland?
70 degrees, like minimal wind.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's sort of what I got. But you know, we'll be live at 6. We'll fine tune it a little bit. I'm gonna probably play a little bit bigger, try and feed into the positive stuff that's been happening since I've been in this new place. It's been good. So
I might be a little late, like 6:15.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Sounds good.
All right. I'll see you later.